Hey buddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome back to Stellaris, a tutorial for complete beginners. In the previous episode, we covered what to do in the early game, basic early game concepts. And in this video, we're going to be playing through the mid game. Basically, the mid game in Stellaris is when you start worrying about these strategic resources, things like volatile motes, exotic gases, and rare crystals. Probably going to start getting into wars and rivalries. You're not going to have any free land to expand into in the form of empty territory. Your worlds are going to start to mature. Like, for example, if we take a look at Earth here, there's 5.2 thousand population. Well, 5.3 really. It's slightly round up there. And, and one of the kind of main important goals that you want to be hitting in the mid game is every planet that you have, you'll want to try and get that maximum logistic growth on. So you can see here on Earth, we're getting 5 base growth. It's 1 plus 4 base growth, and then that's getting a whole bunch of modifiers. And the reason you want that 5 base growth is because population is the fundamental thing. You want to get that 5 base growth. And the way that you get that 5 base growth is by getting to about, I think this mining world here, it's somewhere in the region of like 3,000 to 5,000 population, and then a planet capacity of at least double that. Doesn't matter if the planet capacity is a lot bigger, but you want to get somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000 population. I think it's hard to remember exactly. Like if we check here, we're getting 3.2 extra logistic growth. So yeah, I think it actually is around 3,000 population. So basically, you want to get every world to 3,000 population, and then you want it to have a planet capacity of at least 6,000. This will maximize your logistic growth. And so the way that logistic growth works is basically, we talked a little bit about the curve in the previous episode, but essentially, when a planet is new, you will get a growth penalty from having not enough population. And then once you get around 500 pops, you will start to accumulate population bonus growth up until about 30 pops, or 3,000, right, in the new system. And then that logistic growth will get multiplied by any of your growth modifiers, right? So things like genome mapping, new life, fertility preacher, even negative modifiers like the weak magnetic field, my population jobs, because I have genetic workers on this planet, medical workers, the planet's habitability, rapid breeders, all these things are going to affect it. And your goal is to try to get as much population as possible, because population is the resource that drives the engine of your economy. The more population that we have, the better. Now, I need to figure out why my economy is tanking. Yes, because I'm doing the New World Order situation. I just clicked this to see what would happen, and I'm kind of curious about it. So we'll see how that shakes out. I should probably buy some alloys to survive that. My economy looks a lot worse than it actually is, so just wait until this New World Order thing is over and then we'll be fine. So I think, yes, we managed to depose the people in this minor, this primitive society here. So hopefully we can get them to shift their ideology. And I think it's time to invade them. So we are going to land our armies on this minor planet because they're experiencing a societal shift, and it is time to obliterate them. Our armies have landed, and every day our armies will target an enemy army for damage, and they will take either health or morale damage, or well, they'll take both. Our armies will do the job here. And once we've done that, we have enlightened this society. They are going to get the stellar culture shock effect, which will completely obliterate their happiness. I don't know how to show. Yeah, stellar culture shock here. Minus 33% resources from jobs, minus 20 stability. It causes massive problems for this society. And so to kind of get through this period of roughness, I'm going to build a precinct house and a autocathon monument, just to get this place a little bit of stability. In about 10 years, this planet will be normal. We'll be able to make use of it. We are going to talk to these guys, and when the stellar culture shock runs out, we will probably give them more rights. One of the rights we should give them, they do have colonization rights. So we can use these guys to colonize ocean worlds. And in fact, they are aquatic, so they have extra habitability on ocean. So we want these guys primarily to live on ocean planets. They're very strong, so they're actually quite good soldiers. They're bad at generating unity. They use a lot of consumer goods, and they do not like living on non-ocean, non-wet worlds. So eventually we may genetically modify these guys, but we just got ourselves an extra planet. And planets are the thing that generates growth for you. So now we can colonize this ocean planet with this new Minerian pop. Planets generate population growth, so you want to have as many planets as possible. Now, ideally, they should be good planets where you're hitting that logistic growth. Like, take Sirius Prime here. We want this planet to, we want to have about another 500 jobs. This is a food planet. So I think I'm going to go for planetary. Do I want planetary defenses? Having lots of strongholds would be great because it means we can hit our power projection level a little bit easier. I could also do farming support. Let's do farming support. Let's do it. We'll do farming support so that we can get a lot of, growth out of this planet, a lot of food out of this planet. Now, this planet of Al-Dib as well is another one of these primitive worlds. It's got a splintered tribal society that's in the Bronze Age. So we will want to grab our observation post, run aggressive observation. I'm also going to assign a spy here so we can start to get some more events. Keeping these guys around to observe them for a while is actually quite useful. I had also wanted to build the Grand Archive around here. So we're just waiting for some alloys to come in. And so it's around about this point in the game where you're going to start experiencing a potentially mass die-off of your early game leaders. So we just lost our head of research, and you can spend a little bit of resources to get a nice benefit here. It's usually a little bit of unity for 5 years, which is not bad. We are going to need a new scientist, however, to take up the reins. So I have a head of research, Hikaru here. Boom, he'll do the job. And we got a renowned Paragon who is a commander general. Now he's a slave taker, and I'm not particularly interested in taking that because we don't do slavery in my empire. Okay. We need 2 more agricultural districts in Sirius Prime to reach the 3,000 population limit, or well, the 3,000 population goal that should get us the logistic growth. Now, coming into the mid-game, you're going to get access to a starbase upgrade called the Starhold. This is actually relatively important to get because around about now, you're going to want to start upgrading your star bases to the next tier. It costs 500 minerals and a pretty expensive technology, and I think it is quite important to get this around about this point in the game because without this you're going to start running into difficulty defending and expanding your systems and economy. There's colonial centralization, and this is going to give us access to the planetary capital. This is a very, very important technology because it's going to allow me to upgrade my planetary capital, and the level of your planetary capital dictates the maximum level of your buildings in your cities. So you can kind of see here, the building gives 1,000 housing, 1,000 amenities, plus 1 corporate building, 4 planetary defense armies, 100 enforcer jobs, and 200 politicians. Basically, this next one is going to give 1,500 housing, 2 corporate buildings, 8 defense armies, 2 enforcer jobs, and 3 politician jobs. It's a pretty significant unity upgrade to your planets to go to the next tier. The housing and amenities will increase the potential of your worlds. High potential means more growth. And now the other really important part of this is that it unlocks the second specialization slots on planets that are not your capital, which allows you to either build a more diverse economy or double down even harder. I could build a second mining support, and I am going to build a second mining support because if I use up too much trade value, I will be able to just sell the excess minerals that I generate from this extra mining support. I'm not going to build a second farming support on Sirius Prime, although I may consider building a housing district because we're trying to get enough pops in here to hit that logistic growth. Pax Shalika Prime could be an amazing science world because we have this titanic life modifier. In fact, if we wanted to go crazy on biological science in here to get that society research to go hard, we could actually put a society research specialization on this planet. This would give us biologist jobs. If we combine that with the the xenobiological lab, we would get extra research from a biologist. That might actually be what we do with Pax Shalika Prime. What I'm also going to do in here is I'm going to build the medical center and the Autocaton monument. Those are like the 2 that I like to build those in pretty much every place because they give you growth and they turn your spare civilians into a unity source. And once you reach the mid game, it's going to feel a little bit like juggling. You're going to be juggling your economy very carefully, and you're going to make big swinging decisions that are going to massively change the shape of your income graphs, and you need to be prepared to deal with the consequences of those actions. I've just taken kinship in the harmony traditions, which is going to lower the empire size from our population, meaning we'll have an easier time researching, getting traditions, and also getting our power projection maximum from our fleet capacity. I'm running low on energy credits, so I'm going to pump a couple of extra voltaic production yards, and I'm also using an unholy amount of trade value on Alpha Centauri Prime to sustain this incredible mining operation. So I'm going to also start selling 64 minerals per month, which is the maximum amount that you can sell, so that we just get an excess of trade value that we can use to shift our economy around. In this case, we're trying to shunt things to buy energy because we're basically going easy on energy purchasing. We just colonized Pac Shalika Secundus with the Minerian population, and so we'll need to start thinking about what these new colonies are going to start doing for us in terms of economic production. We don't need more food. We're pretty much good for food for like a very long time. And I think I would like to get rid of the mixed industry from the capital. That would make me pretty happy if I was able to produce my consumer goods and my alloy foundries on a different system. So perhaps Dabe 4 here could be my mixed industry world. I'm going to produce the Grand Archive because this is actually a feature I've never really played around with, so I'm kind of curious about it. That one I'm going to be discovering on my own during this playthrough. So we've got 3 of our planets: Earth, Alpha Centauri Prime, and Sirius Prime have now all hit the maximum logistic growth curve, which means the 3 of these planets are making 15 population per month, or approximately 180 population per year that we can churn into our economy. And we can use these guys on a planet like Pac Shalika Prime to crack out a disgusting amount of society research. So we're going to grab the society research specialization alongside the xenobiological lab. So we'll have a ton of biologist jobs, and they will get us more biology research per biologist. Now, we have just finished researching astral actions. These are the actions that have to do with the astral tears. I'm trying to see if I can find an example of an astral tear. I can't. I can show you an astral thread. So basically what you do is these astral tears are going to appear inside your territory, or indeed just out in the world somewhere. And as you accumulate these astral threads, you'll be able to do astral actions. Astral rifts will appear. When you complete the astral rifts, you'll get a benefit. You'll get access to new abilities. This one here just gives you physics research. It's a way to keep your scientists busy. So this is actually where we get a really interesting choice when it comes to physics. So we just got astral threads and astral actions, but we have to choose between getting a Dyson swarm, which would give us a massive amount of energy output, or do we actually start exploiting volatile motes? And volatile motes are very, very important for tiering up your economy. So I'm going to go ahead and start researching mote harvesting traps. Certain things like industrial production depends upon that. Coming into Dabi 4, since this is going to be an industrial world, I'm going to get myself another set of mixed industry. This is where we're going to consume a bunch of minerals to produce alloys and consumer goods. I didn't realize that there was a Gaia world in this system. That must have been revealed by some sort of event. But we are going to colonize Aldebaran Prime, or Aldebaran 1, because Gaia worlds are unique in that pretty much every species has 100% habitability, which means they take 0 penalties from living on there. Habitability is all about avoiding penalties. The higher your habitability, the less penalties you take, and there is no higher than 100%. And a lot of what I'm doing off screen is just making sure that I'm clearing blockers off my planets, going through and maintaining them, like get rid of that blocker there. Because that increases the potential, keeps my planets busy. I'm keeping an eye out for the accumulation of civilians. For example, Alpha Centauri Prime here has a few civilians, as does Sirius Prime, which means in our tech world, Pac Shalika Prime, it might be worth it for us to get more society, pump up the city districts in here to get more society research, thus encouraging migration to this planet. In your tech worlds, you're probably going to want to put a scientist as a governor. Scientist governors give you extra research from science jobs, and they'll get traits that will further boost that. Now, every now and again, as you're trying to develop a new world, you want to go around and look on your other planets for civilians that you can transport over to that planet to give them jobs. It'll cost you a little bit of energy, but not too much. And this is just a way that you can kind of help the game along and speed up the colonization. Because again, you need to get population on here in order to get population growth. And now that the stellar culture shock modifier has stopped applying to the Minerian species, I'm going to go ahead and set their rights in my country. I'm going to give them full citizenship, full military service, so they can generate leaders, and otherwise fully integrate them into our society. Unfortunately, these cryonic clones are basically just menials who, I guess I could give them full citizenship, so they can be a part of my empire if they want. But I believe they're not intelligent enough to actually colonize planets. They lack because they're nerve stapled. Now, we have finished the Grand Archive, I believe. We have a Unity tradition available as well. +5 stability. Remember, I forget what the actual math on stability is, but basically, actually, let me quickly just Google it. Yeah, so every 1 point of stability gives you about 0.6% resources from jobs. It also changes the resettlement stuff, but we're not too worried about the resettlement at the moment because we're manually resettling pops. So if we get this stability here, that +5 stability is around about a 3% increase in the productivity of our baseline empire across our entire empire. So very, very good to pick that up. -10 crime is handy. It means we need less enforcers. One thing you can do to encourage resettlement here is distribute luxury goods on the colony that you want people to resettle to. And that will increase the amenities, thus increasing the output of this planet. But more importantly, it means more people will move to it on a regular basis. Now, Baron Victor Jaredin is a strategist commander who works on the council. We could get him in here. He would get us military power from power projection, military ship build speed, and honestly he seems like a pretty good leader, so I'm going to bring him in. Maybe we can get him on our council. And we just colonized the Gaia world over here, and it has a couple of interesting effects. It has the 15% high quality minerals, so it could be a really good mining world if that's what we want from it. It also has extra habitability and population growth, so it could be a good population growth world. I think the natural beginning point is always to get the Otto Cthon monument and the medical center to increase the amount of medical workers we have, as that gives population growth. We have just unlocked the Starhold, and the Starhold is an important technology. And this is this is a phase of the game where you're going to get presented with some really difficult choices, right? Like, I really want to unlock destroyers because it will give us fleet command limit, allowing us to have bigger individual fleets. It'll also unlock a new type of ship with bigger weapons, bigger combat power. Generally speaking, in Stellaris, bigger ships are better. But I also need these rare crystals. I want this crystal mining operation. And it's like, what do I take? And I think I need those strategic resources, because the strategic resources are going to set the baseline. They're going to set the foundation for the future. Now, just to keep you updated on what I'm doing with my construction ships, I'm basically just grabbing territory on the edge of my empire. Whenever I have the alloys and when I have the influence, I just grab a piece of land. So there's mode harvesting traps. That is the first of the 3 tier 2 first strategic resources, which is volatile modes, exotic gases, and rare crystals. We want to get access to all 3 if at all possible. We found the Oracle. Now we could dismantle the Oracle for a bunch of resources, or we could make friends with it. Let's make friends with the Oracle. So let's have a look. The Oracle is a renowned Paragon. Oh, he's a really good governor. Oh, wow. So the Oracle is immortal, lowers happiness but gives stability, could be a really good leader of a variety of different planets. Very cool. Come join our empire, please. Oh, perfect. The distribution manager, official class trait. That would be amazing for us to park him on our factory world. And then we get to level it up again. That's even more perfect. And again! Oh, that's huge! That is insane! We just got a level 3 distribution manager that we can park in Daba 4, our industrial world. So now we're using 30% less minerals to make our alloys and consumer goods. That's crazy. That actually means we can start dismantling the mixed industry on our capital to move in a different direction. So I'm going to demolish a couple of buildings to start transitioning towards Daba here being the primary source of those materials. Because again, remember, your capital is one of your most productive worlds in your entire empire. So you want your capital to be focused on something really important, like science. I always like to make my capital a science world. It just feels right. It's the thing that feels right, you know? And perfect, here we go. We found our very first astral rift. So I believe we need more technologies before we can actually start to explore them properly, but we're a step closer. Our Minister of State has died. We could make the Oracle our Minister of State, which I don't think is a terrible move. The Minister of State is mostly to do with diplomacy. So we'll also get that nice +4 stability, which is nice. We are going to need a new leader for Earth. I've got 500 civilians on Earth. I've got 150 civilians on Alpha Centauri. And I've got 100 on Sirius. So we've got a decent amount that we can send on over to Pack Shalika Prime. I don't think we're ready to do the transition on this planet just yet. I think we need some more mixed industry on Daba 4. We are getting there, though. We are getting there. In fact, I think it's, considering the amount of economy that we have, I think it's pretty safe to do this transition now. We're going to switch over to a broad spectrum research enclave. In theory, it's more efficient if we were to focus on another area of research. Like, I suppose you could make the argument, because I have a society focused world, that I could focus my empire capital on the other two types of science, physics and engineering. And I find that actually to be a pretty compelling argument. And the reason that we want to do that is because the research enclave only gets you 90 jobs, but whereas the specialized ones get you 100 jobs. So they actually get you slightly more science for the same amount of city districts. So I find that to be a pretty compelling reason to switch. Now, our economy is going to take quite the dip in terms of consumer goods while we're shifting over to using DABIF 4 as our primary production center. So we want to just take our time, let things play out as they will. You're always going to want to have a big stockpile of resources whenever you try to do a difficult transition like this. And here's where we're going to pick up some really interesting technologies as well. Unified field theory is going to get us the quantum relations annex, which is going to allow us to use volatile motes to support our physics research, but also the energy research support will allow us to convert energy districts into energy research. So a lot of really interesting ways that you can specialize and develop your planet. Quite unfortunately, it looks like there has been a giant explosion on one of our planets, which is going to create physicist jobs. It's kind of an interesting problem for us. We have access to crystals now. We really need access to gas. Now, let's take a peek at the Grand Archive, because I don't actually fully understand how this works. Don't forget, by the way, that you can discover precursor insights, which is that very important mission to discover the precursors that we talked about in the previous video, using your minor artifacts. By clicking on these, you can click Discover Precursor Insight. I think we got one on Cybrex over here. There's another one over here, another one over here. Like, you just want to make sure that you're researching those when you have time. Grab your research ship, send them over there to grab those. I'm still in the process of trying to build enough city districts on DABIF 4 to cover our consumer goods needs. I'll grab a civilian industry as well. It's a good thing that we have a huge stockpile so that we can ease our way through the transition. We've got some access to new society researches. These kind of like golden ones, these come from observing pre-sapients, and they're quite good because they'll give you half an envoy, and that's going to be good for both diplomacy and espionage. So these are good to pick up for that reason. That's why we like to have these observation posts rather than just straight up invading them, because it gives us access to these kind of unique technologies, and we don't even really have the resources to sustain more planets at the moment, because we're still in the process of trying to upgrade, like this industrial world. Like, it doesn't even have its logistic growth curve yet, I think. No, actually, no. Yeah, it's once you're getting about 5 growth per month, that means you're at that point. Once your baseline growth is above 5, you're hitting that logistic growth curve, which is what you want. So the fact that we're slightly above that is great. Now, the other thing about society research is in the mid-game, you're going to start to get access to things like uplifting, epigenetic triggers. You're going to get terraforming. Terraforming is incredibly useful, in my opinion. It allows you to convert energy into new planets. So you can see these red planets here that we can't colonize. Well, we could, but the habitability is way too low. Terraforming terraforming will allow us to turn these into planets that we can actually make use of. You click on the planet, so like take, for example, Kiram here. I click on Kiram and I go to management, and then I click on terraforming to terraform it. And amazing. So we have managed to successfully get enough Cybrex precursor artifacts in the precursor mission here that will allow us to reveal the Cybrex homeworld. Now, each homeworld is going to give us, or rather, each precursor thing is going to give us a variety of different events. So what you're going to want to do is grab your closest science ship, which for me is this guy over here, and send him there to immediately research this. And you're also going to want to send a construction ship over there pretty much immediately to get control of that, because it's a unique system in the galaxy. DABIF 4 is starting to come online in a very nice way. We are going to need some luxury residences. I have a ton of civilian and alloy industries under construction. It's going to take several more years before we are actually at a consumer goods surplus. We're almost there. We're only at minus 20 consumer goods per month now, which is a lot closer to what we needed to be. And again, because we're in the mid-game, we're starting to get some really interesting technology offers. For example, the transit hub. This is a really useful station. But this is an important thing to understand, is that switching what a world does takes a lot of time. Like, to build a city district takes 332 days. A year is 365. To build one of these alloy foundries, I think they take, 249 days. Like, it takes a lot of time to retool a planet's purpose. So you need to be thinking carefully about, what does this planet do? What can my economy support? What can I actually achieve? I wanted to talk about these transit hubs and the hyperdrives. The Better hyperdrives will increase the rate at which your fleets can jump from system to system by increasing the hyperwarp drive charge time. The transit hub will, when built on a station around a planet, it can either be the central command station. You can see later on in the game, we're going to get the ability to build orbital rings around our planets, but you can build them on either this central sort of station to the system where we can put the resettlement thing. Oh yeah, by the way, I should probably upgrade this to a next tier starbase. I forgot to do that. But the transit hub will increase the rate that populations on these worlds that want to migrate, right, and usually it's your civilians who are going to do your migrating, that they will migrate to a different world, which saves you a lot of energy from manually resettling. So I would consider this to be a relatively important technology as you're getting into the mid-game, so that you don't have to manually move your population around the galaxy quite so much to optimize your empire. There's also the gravity snares here, which will allow you to capture and transport space fauna. But since I want to focus on developing my economy, I'm going to grab the hyperlane breach points for the transit hub and the better hyperdrive. Now, I also want to make sure that I go through and I upgrade all my star bases that are around planets. I have another Unity tradition here. I can go ahead and grab the stability. It's also going to lower the colony ascension cost. We will talk about colony ascension costs later, but it's not important right now because we don't actually have a world that's producing a lot of Unity. Now, Aldebaran Prime here could be a prime candidate to be a generator world. It actually has 9 spots for generator districts. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit Mastery of Nature to get the +2 district capacity. And we're going to turn this into a generator world because that would allow me to get rid of the generator districts in my capital. So they would be no longer necessary and I could move that energy production away from this world. Another option that we have for generating that kind of energy is actually by building a trade world using commercial zones. However, the problem with going with a trade world is that it pretty much demands that you take the trade ideas, and that's just not really part of our plan. So perfect, we have discovered the Cybrex central nexus, and this is going to give us access to the Cybrex Warforge. We're going to get a bunch of minor artifacts. We should probably spend some. We'll get a huge amount of Unity, engineering research, energy credits. That's going to be the end of the precursor event chain. Now we can go into our minor artifacts here and we can click to delve into the secrets of the Cybrex. So there we go. And that will begin the special project that will be in our situation log. And it will cost us a significant amount of research and it'll take about 32 months, but it is worth it. So one of the really cool things about the Cybrex, I believe we should have it as a technology or something. I don't know where it shows up, but basically we now have access to the Cybrex Warform. And if you look at that health, 1400, when a normal army has about 200, and it also doesn't get affected by morale damage. That's insane. And it does about the same amount of damage as like 3 to 4 armies, which is crazy. And unfortunately, some of the beasts that I was studying, these enraged titans, took over one of my planets, so I'm going to need some Cybrex Warforms to take them out. So we have access to terraforming now, which is going to allow us to spend money to terraform planets. So if I come over here to Kiram, I go to management, because this is a tomb world, I need to have climate restoration technology and 9,000 energy to terraform it. But something like this Alpine world here is much easier for me to terraform. It just costs 4,500. So this is a great way to turn energy into more colonies. Here's another really important mid to late game technology, Galactic administration. It's going to give us access to an extra civic slot. Now, civic slots are one of those things that you choose right at the start of the game. I'm trying to remember how to get to them. Yeah, it's reform government here. So it basically allows us to pick an extra one of these really powerful effects that completely changes the way that you play. So I would say that this is one of the most important technologies in the game. It's one of those you kind of want to pick it the second you see it, because it'll also allow you to upgrade the capital buildings on your worlds, allowing you to get more politicians. Politicians give you unity and amenities, keeping your planets happy. Happier planets produce more everything. Another way you can rebalance your economy away from minerals to consumer goods is by using trade. So I'm going to sell some alloys to pick up some consumer goods. Another thing that's important here is you also have government policy, where you could do economic policy, which will allow you to shift from a consumer goods economy to a alloys economy. And really that's just dependent on, like, if you're going for a more militaristic approach of like conquering worlds, this one is good because it allows you to build more ships, all that sort of stuff. So awesome. We have managed to grab secrets of the Cybrex. one of our guys is going to grab expertise in voidcraft, but the more important thing is we're going to get access to mega engineering. This is going to be a technology that increases our resource capacity, gives us more access to arc furnaces, Dyson swarms, deep space citadels. We can also restore megastructures. We're also going to get access to the Cybrex mining hub, and we will also be able to build megastructures faster. So pretty cool to get the Cybrex as your precursors. Each different precursor is going to provide you with different benefits, a different storyline that you can follow. It's all very cool, and I highly recommend following down that line. Now, you're always going to want to have at least one good shipyard for ship production. In my case, I usually make my capital the shipyard. And it's not a terrible idea to get an interstellar recruitment office as well. Around about some of my other planets, I prefer to focus on resource generation. If I don't need the extra shipyards, like if I had a lot more neighbors that were aggressive, I wouldn't be able to go quite as hard into economy right now. But the fact that I don't have anyone kind of on my borders causing issues, I can go for this off-world trading company and build a couple more trade hubs around this planet to sustain the ridiculous amount of mining that I'm doing on this world. If you're constantly losing ships, it might be good to get more shipyards. If you need to just have a bigger fleet so that you don't get attacked as much, anchorages combined with, I don't think I have the module unlocked, but basically it gives you more ship capacity from your anchorages. That can be a good choice. So something you can do with the Cybrex Warforge is if you click this, you convert 1,000 minerals into, or 2,000 minerals and a little bit of unity into alloys. It's like pretty good. And every time you click it, it gets stronger, I believe. It uses more minerals to turn it into more alloys. So it's a pretty useful ability. So here's an amazing technology we picked up from observing. This is going to get us an extra 0.5 allies per 100 metallurgists in our empire. And that's why it's really good to do these, to observe these primitives, because you'll get insights that you wouldn't normally get access to. So if I come in here and I see I have 2,000 metallurgists, right? And they're cranking out a base output of 55.14. I'm going to add an extra 10 base alloys once I research that technology, which again, this is how we drive the engine of our civilization, by making individual jobs more efficient. It's a key part of our strategy. Now, we're at a phase of the game where we have an excess of population. If I look through my plans, you can see I've got civilians sitting around here, I've got civilians sitting around here. A lot of my worlds have civilians, which means we're not really using up our population very quickly. Now, we've got quite a few science worlds, and I think it's about time that we got ourselves a Unity world, so we'll make a nice holy planet on this ocean world here. So we're going to want to build a lot of temples, but we'll start by building our spiritual enclaves. Now, this planet would probably be better focused on physics research, but the reality is, like, I don't have the need for another physics world, considering my capital has the physics research specialization on it. Okay, perfect. We have access to the transit hub and the better hyperdrive. If we go to our fleet management and we look at our corvettes, you can see here the hyperdrive has a 25% faster charge time. And so that's going to reduce the amount of time it takes for your fleet to move around the galaxy. Another really important mid-game technology here is the planetary faster than light inhibitors and the starbase faster than light inhibitors. Early into the game, you can just kind of bypass these starbases that are around systems. Once you have this, you have to defeat the starbases and also defeat the planets. This allows you, if you build enough soldier jobs on a planet, it allows you to create a choke point. Like if I had a planet right here and I were to fill it with soldiers, it would be incredibly difficult to break. And it would take a hell of a long time, it would buy me lots of time. So it's an important technology for sort of choking out the galaxy. All right, let's reinvade Pac Shalika Prime. Hopefully we can reclaim our world, taking out the Titanic enraged Guardians. Our Cybrex Warform is doing the majority of the tanking. We did lose a couple of guys, but it's not super important. Perfect. We have resecured our not our capital, this society tech world, because we annoyed the Titanic life forms that live there. So we're going to start by building a few temples on our ecclesiastical world. We are going to need to think about our amenities. There's kind of two major ways you can deal with amenities. You can build holo theaters, which will create a small amount of unity, but also a small amount of amenities. Or you could use luxury residences, which will give the planet lots of capacity and lots of amenities. I prefer luxury residences, but the holo theater is also a valid decision. The reason I like the luxury residences for the amenities is because they don't actually require people to work in them. So we're in the process of clearing up a lot of blockers and saving up energy credits. My plan is to build Aldebaran Prime as a location that will produce a ridiculous amount of energy. I'm just setting up with like really high amenities. I'll need to get my generator supports in here as well. so that we can start cranking out generators. And I've been banking population across the galaxy, or across my empire rather, that I can shunt over to Aldebaran. Technically it would be better as a mining world, but 15% is nice, but it's not enough. Like, don't think of this as like 15%. Think of this as like 15% on top of all the other percentage bonuses. So you don't have to specialize a planet the way that the game encourages you to. Because, like, it's not 15% of this number, it's 15% of this number. So it would be like an extra 6 minerals on Alpha Centauri Prime, which really isn't that much when you really think about it. So just keep that in mind. Ooh, we found the Memoriax, which is going to make our capital better. Awesome. Surely there can be no downsides to that. And you can see we now have 100% stability on Earth, so we're getting a 30% resource from jobs output bonus. Remember, that's base resource output, so the more resource outputs you get, the less each individual output has an impact on your economy. And at this point in the game, the fact that I'm 68 years into the game and I haven't researched a single weapons technology is alarming, and I should probably rectify that situation, and so I will rectify the situation. There's a lot of interesting and unique bonuses that you can get from the Grand Archive. So for example, this Cybrex Warform, I can spend 10 energy to exhibit and get 10% of extra ship hull points. This right here would give me extra unity. This gives me edict fund, society research, leader experience gain. That's a really good one. Let's grab that. That's an epic one. It's going to cost us 12 energy upkeep a month, right? Could be worth it. 2% minerals from jobs. Not a huge amount, but a nice little trickle. A trickle of awesomeness. Awesome. We just got supreme alloys, and now we're going to get way more alloys. Oh my god, this is what I've been waiting for. The exotic gas refineries at long last. Gas has been a very, very important bottleneck for my empire because we need gas to make our research planets more efficient. If I pop in here, you can see the data-driven theorem facility, which would give a 15% job efficiency bonus across this entire planet, costs 2 gas per month to maintain. And so that's why we've been trying to find the gas production technologies. Now, around about 50 to 80 years into the game, I can't remember exactly how long it takes, you're going to get this event, and it's the birth of the Galactic community. And this is basically a sort of galactic world congress where a variety of different proposals are going to be sent for consideration by the members of the galactic community. And they will generally have either positive or negative effects or mechanical changes to the game. So let's take a look at, say, something right here, galactic commerce. If we take buzzword standardization, we'll get 5% more trade from jobs, but priests will take 5% more upkeep. And you can see as we sort of progress down through the increase in the commerce and industry resolutions, the effects of this will grow stronger, right? So the first one is like, oh, economy is more important. The second one is economy is even more important. You start losing naval capacity. You get even more trade from jobs. And then you start getting, here's a unique effect. Observation posts will give you consumer goods while you're observing pre-fasted and light travel civilizations until you get all the way to profit maximalized engines, which is basically going to increase your priest output. So we don't want buzzword standardization because we're a civilization. We like priests. We want priests to keep on not being expensive. So we're going to oppose buzzword standardization. Storm knowledge sharing, on the other hand, right? We could kind of look at some of these things that people have proposed, and we can even propose our own resolutions. And there's multiple different categories. There's like politics, where we can give workers more rights. You can see here, if you progress down this tree, eventually workers will you'll get more diplomatic weight from your population. Your workers will have more happiness. They'll have more political power. They'll take up less of your empire size. You'll use less housing. You get a stability bonus. So for me, because I am a spiritualist empire, I'm going to really like comfort the fallen. So I'm going to spend the 100 influence to get that put into the galactic community. Regulated growth here. If you take a look at that one, it's purple. Basically, I believe this is for people who have a lot of vassals. It's good for them and bad for people who don't. Whereas bureaucratic surveillance is, I think, bad for vassals? I don't remember. I don't fully understand it. Basically, the whole bunch of stuff that goes on here. Honestly, I mostly ignore it. I'll come in here every now and again. I'll go, Galactic Market, support. Storm knowledge sharing, support. Tianki pest control, oppose. Comfort the pollen, support. Regulated growth, support. Sounds great. No, you know what? I oppose this. Here's another really important mid to late game technology that you're going to want to grab, and that's hyper relays. These are going to allow you to basically think of these as interstellar highways. They allow you to connect systems so that your ships will move through them faster. Effectively, what it does is that it folds space. So, like, let's say it takes 80 days for a fleet to go from Alpha Centauri to Sol. The hyperspace relay might make that 40 days. And when you've got like 10 systems to cross, it might take you 800 days, right? That's like nearly 3 years. If you have a hyperspace relay across that whole thing in a really advanced hyperdrive, you might get over there in like 200 days. So it's a very, very important part of like being a big, expansive empire is getting some of these late game technologies. Another really interesting part of the Galactic community is that it's going to reveal a whole bunch of other players because, I mean, you're going to learn about them. Right, perfect. I have a generator world that has a generator support built and no generator district. So we're going to start cranking out all the generator districts so that we can make infinite energy credits from here. And then we can use those energy credits to start absolutely swamping the galaxy in terraformed planets. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to make the decision to distribute luxury goods. And around my inhabited systems, I'm going to try and build transit hubs so that my people are more likely to get automatically resettled to planets that I care about. So like, for example, in here, I'm building 2 trade hubs. I'm replacing the hydroponics bay with an off-world trading company because I have so much excess food. I don't need the hydroponics bay anymore. And then I'm going to grab a transit hub to transport my population around the galaxy. In Aldebaran, I'm doing the exact same thing. Trade hubs, goodbye for the trading company and the transit hub. And I'm basically doing that across the entire galaxy, relying on my star bases to generate me a lot of trade value because I'm consuming so much trade value in the development side of my empire. I had no idea there was a pre-sapient population on this planet. We've got these Nahars here that like living on tundra worlds. I have no idea how they got here, but useful regardless. More importantly, as we crank out the insane amounts of technician jobs, we should start to see migration come in. You can see 50 people a month are moving to this planet. So we don't have to manually move people anymore. They will just move around our empire as jobs become available. I think my empire is a lot hungrier for consumer goods than it is for alloys. So in Dabi 4, because I'm in the process of building up an ecclesiastical world, which is going to use a lot of consumer goods to produce a lot of unity, in my industrial world, I may actually switch this world to being a factory world to focus in on the consumer goods side of the equation, and then switch these alloy foundries to be consumer goods factories, at least one at a time, while also expanding the actual city districts of themselves. And population, now that we have all of our planets, like they've hit that logistic curve on population growth, we're going to fill these jobs pretty quickly. There's a rate at which we grow. I do wish that I had like an overall population growth. Like I wish I had a thing that showed me how many people I have just living and existing as citizens in my empire. That's something I think the developers could probably implement so that I know how many jobs I have sort of available to, or how many people I have available to fill new jobs. Because when you're analyzing your empire from this sort of top-down point of view, you want to start thinking about it in terms of like the total jobs and total population of your entire empire. So there's exotic gas refineries. That's going to be massive for us. Let's improve the armor of our ships. We should probably just get a few techs to improve our weaponry and improve our ships. They'll be quick and easy because now that we have encountered a whole bunch of people in the galaxy, conflict is likely to start brewing. Basically, once you start having neighbors who aren't necessarily friendly, that's when you got to start like looking at this guy here. He could very easily declare war on me. He's got overwhelming fleet power. So hey, maybe I should get another fleet. Maybe I should improve my existing fleet. Like, what if I come in here and I'm like, oh, I've got an interceptor. Yeah, interceptor design is fine. What if we used blue lasers? This is generally the ship setup that I like. It's a single shield and 2 armor. You can do, it's slightly more upkeep efficient to do 3 shields and a reactor booster. I do think the better ship is actually more like this, using the evasion chance from the afterburners to bring you up to 60 something percent evasion while just stacking armor on your ship for the maximum total amount of health. This ship will cost a lot of upkeep, however, so I do think it's worth it to consider doing the cheaper to maintain version of this, which is, more shield heavy, 2 shields, 1 armor type thing. and our energy now is skyrocketing. We're no longer going to need to buy energy, which is great. The nice thing about making this planet into an energy generation location is that later on in the game, if we find a different energy generation planet, we could switch this to being an energy research support, which would replace half of the jobs on this planet, half of the energy generation jobs with physicist jobs, which would be pretty cool. Now, because we are playing as a dictatorship, our leader just died and we're going to get an election. And you can influence this election pretty effectively. Like, for example, I can spend a certain amount of unity to make sure this guy becomes my leader. And I think I will just elect him for the sake of it. So now if you look here, he is my Grand Marshal. He's a skill 4. He's providing the, I forget where exactly he's acting from, but basically he's going to give us a huge amount of influence from power projection, which is awesome. So there's hyper relay construction. We're starting to get offered some of the really advanced buildings like the Fundamental Research Nexus, the Energy Nexus, the Neurogenetics Institute, alongside the biological research support. We're going to start terraforming some of the worlds that we have in our systems so that we can begin colonizing them and expanding our empire inside our existing borders. The fundamental name of the game in Stellaris is about growth, expansion, and increasing your engine. You're always trying to figure out, how do I get more out of what I have, and how do I get more? How do I get more out of what I have, and how do I get more of what I have? So I'm going to build an exotic gas refinery here instead of this alloy foundry. This is going to give us a ridiculous amount of exotic gases. I think it's going to give us like 40 per month, and that's going to easily sustain my entire empire's need for gases, which will allow me to start doing some really nice specialization, getting like the data-driven Ethereum facility, which is going to increase the job efficiency for scientists on my worlds. I'm also going to be able to get the research supply depot, which is going to lower my research upkeep by minus 20%. Upkeep efficiency is massive. It means you can have a lot more of the same population, and upkeep efficiency is one of those things that stacks with itself really well. So like, if you get minus 20% twice, you're able to have like twice as many scientists compared to getting plus 20% twice, which just feels like you have like 30% more scientists. So some of the things that we need to work our way towards being ready to fight are fleets with 12,000 fleet power or more. Right now we have enough fleet power. We got about 6k in fleet power at the moment, so we're not the strongest. I think it would be a good idea to improve relations with this hive mind on our border, just so they feel a little bit more chill, and so they don't feel like it's necessary to kill us stone dead. So now we can get ourselves a new civic. Speaking personally, I'm a really big fan of Ascensionists, particularly if you're going for a high spirituality build. It'll make Ascension effects better, it'll make Ascension cheaper, it'll lower the cost of traditions, it'll give us extra unity. It has a lot of really powerful effects. So, you know, it's not like one of the most powerful abilities in the game, but I think it's pretty decent. So we're going to grab ourselves the Minister of Ascension, which is going to give us plus 2% monthly unity per level. We're also going to grab ourselves the Administrative Coordinator, which is going to lower our priest upkeep. Then we're going to grab the Head of Research alongside the Minister of Defense. We'll start assigning people to all of these jobs. So I want to tell you about the Hyperspace Relay. It is going to cost us a significant amount of rare crystals to produce. So we're going to need a lot of rare crystals, we're going to need a lot of influence, we're going to need a lot of alloys, so we're not quite ready to build it just yet. And this is what you're going to want to do throughout the mid-game here, is just checking to see if you have civilians on your worlds, and if you do, then it's a good time to expand them. You're going to need a lot of minerals. You're probably going to need a second mineral world around about now. So start having a think, like look for a world with, like, for example, Kiram here has a really high amount of mining districts. Unfortunately, it's a tomb world, so it's hard to terraform. But yeah, if you can get your hands on another mineral world, you'll be doing great. We simply don't make, like, I know we're making 300 minerals a month, but that is not enough to sustain, like, making changes to our sectors. And I'm wondering if I can get a official for this planet. We can upgrade our planetary capital to the System Capital Complex, which is going to double the amount of corporate buildings and planetary defense armies, give us extra enforcer and politician jobs. So it's always good to kind of upgrade your planets to the next tier. Our ecclesiastical world has finished another spiritual conclave, so we're going to crank out another 3 temples. This is going to give us 600 extra priest jobs. That's going to allow us to pump An insane amount of population onto this world is the hope. I'm also going to go ahead and make the decision to distribute luxury goods and to do mastery of nature here. And also we want to send artifacts to the museum exhibits here to get the extra unity output. Habitats are extremely useful. If you want to build habitats, that's really, really good. You could make the argument that star fortresses are more important. You can make the argument that cruisers are more important. You can make the argument that mega engineering is more important. Habitats are extremely useful for one very major purpose, in that on certain choke points, like for example Taramba here, I could build a habitat here and fill it with soldiers, which would give me more naval capacity, but also essentially a location on the map that would be incredibly difficult for another player to break. And so that is why I like orbital habitats. I like to use them as essentially fortresses, because if I only ever have to defend on this location, let's say in some hypothetical world the Ithil Harmony decided to declare war on me and attack me, if they have to try and break through this location, right, and I build up a starport with defensive modules, I have fleets parked here, I have a defense habitat filled with soldiers, it's going to take them a very, very long time to break this, which gives me time to mobilize a response against them. So that's what I like to use habitats for. I like to use them as choke points to prevent enemies from getting in. I also like to put habitat choke points where there are gateways and also where there are wormholes. I don't see a lot of wormholes right now. Let's expand the council. You pretty much want to do these as soon as it's possible. I'm going to suppress the materialist faction in my empire far more in favor of the spiritualist faction in my empire, because our lack of support is causing us a little bit of legitimacy problems. We are not very much so a materialist empire. We do not focus on the robots and stuff like that, which is what materialism is all about. We're more of the spiritual angle. We can finish off harmony traditions. That's going to get us edict fund, but it's also going to get us the colony ascension effects plus 25%. And an important part of your mid-game is going to be how you plan to ascend. There are 4 ascension paths in the game right now. You've got biomorphosis, which is the genetic path, I believe. You can go down a route of purity. You can go down a route of cloning, mutation. You've got the flesh is weak, which is a cybernetic tree. You've got synthetic evolution, which is about turning your faction into robots. And you've got mind over matter, which is more in the psionic ascension direction. And because we're a spiritualist empire, we're going to go the mind over matter direction. This is going to grant us access to the psionics tree, which is something that we will work on. Right now, my big focus is on upgrading the amount of unity that my empire makes so that I can get these traditions a little bit faster. Every time I build a city district in Pax Shalika Secundus, we are going to create 200 priest jobs. Every 200 priest jobs will use 3 consumer goods, thereabouts, in exchange for 24 unity per month. So we could easily support 10 more districts in here. So I'm going to bring this up to 10. With our current surpluses, even though we're buying these, I think we can support it just fine. I'm going to switch this alloy foundry over to a civilian industry for now. We may even consider switching this mixed industry entirely to a civilian industry. Once we find maybe another mineral world, maybe we could make a forge world to dedicate our alloy supply somewhere else. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at all these primitive worlds that we have inside our empire, and we're going to look for one that could serve as a strong mineral planet, like Aldib 2. Aldib 2 has 11 potential mining districts, so that is a perfect place for us to bring another mining planet. So let's go ahead and land units on that world. We're going to need a lot of minerals. We're also making an outrageous amount of exotic gases per month, like 50 plus. So we could just go ahead and sell those. Exotic resources do not sell. You can't sell that many of them. You can only sell like 2 or 3 per month before you hit the maximum cap. So the fact that we're making so many is just insane. No empire needs that much excess gas. One of my guys retired, which is unfortunate. I'll put a new official on the council. We're going to need more governors governing. And now with the huge surplus of energy, I should be easily able to go into the Grand Archive. I can never remember where it actually is. Here it is, and I can easily activate all of these guys now. +2 stability is not bad, we'll take that one. I don't even know what this one does. I don't think it does anything. Is that just 300 global amenities? If that's 300 amenities, right, we look at Sirius Prime, a random planet, and if we if we activate this, yeah, that's a 300 amenities across our empire. That's amazing. Yes, we can get chemical plants. We'll be able to get volatile moats. It's going to be amazing. Okay, Aldebaran Prime. We need to make these generator worlds, this generator world more efficient. This energy is going to be used to convert planets using terraforming. I think it would be good for us to get the energy grid for that 20% technician output. I think it would also be good if we were to upgrade the planetary administration to get a second generator support. I think it would also be good if we considered, do we want more generator districts? Yeah, we'll get the conductive works complex. And then the question is, do we want the voltaic production yard or the resource silos? I'll go for the voltaic production yard. We'll upgrade you. It'll take a while, but this planet will slowly become more efficient. And we're making so much energy now, it'll be a breeze to start terraforming a bunch of planets that we have. All right, perfect. We have subjugated this pre-FTL civilization. They are going to get stellar culture shocks. They'll have a rough time adjusting to this new situation. But these guys are good at Alpine worlds. Aldib is a tomb world, which is amazing because these guys have, they're survivors, so they have full habitability on tomb worlds. Okay, that's great actually, because we can use these guys to colonize tomb worlds. We're going to go ahead and set their rights. You guys will be full citizens. I'm going to set the tomb worlder version, the survivors. These will be the default template. And then I'm going to tell the originals to integrate into the tomb world versions. So they will slowly become this version here. And so they have full citizenship, they get decent conditions. I don't think I can afford to give them social welfare. Social welfare doubles the cost of maintaining your population, basically, for a small boost in happiness. So unless you've got a really big, really efficient empire, it's not worth it. And I'll give them access to full military service, full citizenship. Otherwise, they have been forcibly integrated into our empire. I'm going to protect pre-sapients. These are life beings with life deserving of protection. And we're going to begin the process of setting Aldib up here as a mining world. Now we're going to need the basic things in here. We want their Arthakathon monument so that any citizens, any regular civilians that exist on this planet will provide us with unity. It'll also provide us a very small baseline amount of unity, which will be helpful. There is an argument to be made that instead of building this thing, you could build a temple, but it's fine. I'm going to build that. And we will also build ourselves the medical center for the population growth and the amenities. Then, to optimize the amount of resources we get out of each individual job, I personally like to build luxury residences. However, we have run out of money, so we're going to have to chill for a bit while we work on that. The good news is we do have a species that's capable of colonizing another tomb world over here, Kiram 3C, which could be another great mining world. It means we could very easily support Tai Yangshao as a forge world. So here's an interesting technology. We could get access to cloning so that we could clone our population. But I don't think we necessarily need to go that route, but it is an interesting option. We have the unity now to where we can ascend our capital city. So I want to kind of talk about this. Basically right now, just snapshot this in your mind. 5 stability, 1,000 amenities, 100% governing ethics, and 10% resources from jobs. So if we pop in here and we hammer the colony ascension button, boosh, a couple of important things have happened there. First of all, the empire size of this planet has been significantly reduced, saving me about 5 empire size. Now remember, empire size affects both technology costs as well as tradition costs, as well as power projection. You need a certain amount of ships to meet your power projection maintenance requirements. We have access to chemical plants. This is amazing, by the way. I got distracted and I forgot what I was talking about. Ascension effects. So basically, ascending a planet makes it more efficient. If we look now, this planet is getting another 3.7% resources from jobs. It's getting more governing ethics attraction, more amenities, more stability. So by ascending a planet, you can spend unity to make an individual planet more efficient at outputting a certain resource. And I always think it's good to ascend your capital because it tends to be one of your more important production sectors. I also like to ascend my unity worlds because it just feels right to ascend them. It goes from 10% output and 10% upkeep reduction. If I ascend the world, boosh, it'll use up less empire size, but it'll also provide us with extra priest output and extra priest upkeep reductions, which is nice, making this planet cheaper to maintain, yada yada, blah blah blah. All right, we're terraforming more worlds towards tundra, as tundra just suits us a lot better than others. Okay, we have Aldib 2 developing as a world for minerals. Now it's going to be hard to grow a tomb world because not many of my pops will want to live there, but that's fine. It will eventually generate those minerals that we need. Let's keep on terraforming. Wait, you have pre-sapients? Oh, I regret. I didn't research uplift. Ugh. So let's see how I could improve my relationship with the Xeno Tolerance Council. It's one of the biggest factions in my empire. They would like it if we got rid of purging as government policy. So I'm going to prohibit purging. That should help improve their relationship with my empire. And it would make them happier if we had balanced vassalage over oppressive vassalage. In terms of first contact protocols, it would make them happier if we took a proactive approach to first contact. I think that'll make them a little bit happier. They don't like it when you invade pre-FTL worlds. I also changed the policy that's going to allow me to uplift the primitives on these worlds. So we'll send a spy over here to try to uplift them technologically to our level without causing massive invasion or stellar. I mean, I guess we could just invade them. We're at a phase of the game now where like just invading people is, you know, it's an option. Let's get ourselves another farming support. We'll get a few more agricultural districts. We're kind of low on food. A single food planet can support like a massive empire. I'm going to switch this mixed industry over to a specific consumer goods industry, as I simply do not need that many alloys at the moment. At the current stage, we will get more. And in fact, we're going to start building Tiangshu Prime in the direction of being an alloy world. We'll start building some heavy industry here, and we'll also build these things like the Autocathon Monument, the medical center, some luxury residences, so we can start preparing to, well, turn this into a forge world. Remember, we're crank because we have so many planets now that are all developing, having several thousand population each. Like, we're cranking out population. So before we could take the next tradition slot, we are going to have to research psionics. Psionics should come up as a choice in our society research tree over time. For now, I'm going to be spending my unity on ascending worlds. Like, take this mining world, for example. We could get that 25% miner output. I ascend the planet, boom. And now it is a 34% mining output. And we'll see a slight increase in the minerals per month. It's not going to be it's not going to break the bank. It's not going to change the face of my empire, but it's a nice little thing. A little bit less empire size. It just, again, remember, think about that engine. I want you to imagine that my empire is converting stuff into other stuff that I care about. That is what we are trying to do. We are constantly trying to convert the resources that we have access to into the resources that we want. I've got some terraforming going here. Let's open up our expansion planner. I need to find those cyborgs and move them to Aldib. I think they would be really happy there. It's a tomb world, and they like tomb worlds, if I remember correctly. So let me have a look. Were they on Alpha Centauri? I can't remember. Yes, I think they were. So if we take a look at the cryonic clones, they have tomb world preference. They like living on tomb worlds. And while they're probably happier on some of my other worlds where they maybe even have higher habitability, like, I don't know, what kind of habitability do they have on Alpha Centauri if I take a peek here? Yeah, they only have 60% habitability where they had like 75 on Aldib, I believe. So they would actually be happier on this planet. So I'm going to relocate them to a world better suited to their physiology. All right, let's have a look at the galactic community here. We've got high consequence protection. I'm going to oppose this. I'm going to oppose, pretty much oppose everything. The Senate has been passing all sorts of weird acts like the Mutual Defense Act. It does give you more naval capacity, and defense privatization, which lowers naval capacity in exchange for military enclaves. I don't like that. So we got access to destroyers, and destroyers are a little bit different from your corvettes in that they have a wider range of weapon types available to them. If you go to your corvette, you can get like either 3 small weapons or 1 picket plus 2 small weapons. The destroyer, on the other hand, can have, I believe, 1 picket and 2 smalls, plus 2 smalls, 2 pickets, and a medium. My opinion is that bigger weapons are typically going to be better. So I'll lose like a blue laser, which has a maximum range of 80, plus a medium mass driver, which has a maximum range of 75. And then that means the both weapons of the ship should be able to focus fire on a single target. There is an argument to be made to give this ship the interceptor stern, as you can put 2 afterburners on it to make it really evasive. You plonk a couple of missiles on it, and it becomes a very long range ship, right? Range 0 to 100, plus the artillery bow. It becomes a very long range ship indeed, with really good afterburners, so it can move around the galaxy a lot faster. You can't use that many deflectors. I like to use a lot of deflectors because deflectors are cheaper to maintain. Again, like if we look at the large ceramo metal armor, it takes half a energy credit per day to upkeep versus the large deflectors, which takes 1/5 of an energy credit to maintain per day. So you can see why I prefer shields to have a really, really high maintenance, low maintenance fleet. A high efficiency fleet from a maintenance point of view. However, I do generally think that armor is actually better. So do keep that in mind. You've got a lot of things that you've got to consider when you're building your fleets. And we're at the phase of the game where it's probably a good idea for me to get a second shipyard. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Our total alloy production has dipped, but we have a lot more consumer goods, which means we'll be able to safely pump city districts into this ecclesiastical world. Like we can just max that out based on the amount of minerals that we're making. Let's replace one of these civilian industries with a chemical plant so that we can have all of the volatile motes that we will ever need. They will be key resources once we reach a certain level. Coming into Pac Shalika Prime, which is one of my tech worlds. I'm going to make sure that I explicitly make it a tech world. I have the Xenobiological Lab, which provides extra society research per biologist. I'm going to get myself the data-driven Ethereum facility, which will increase the job efficiency, getting us a 15% output bonus. I'm also going to get myself the research supply depot, which is going to lower the researcher upkeep. And I'm building another biological specialization. This planet will be almost entirely dedicated to society research. So you can see in the galaxy, I am the third most powerful faction in the galaxy. However, you do have to take into account that I have 5,000 score coming from the relics that I have collected. So really subtract 5,000 from my score, and you can see I'm about the same power level as my neighbor here, the Ithil Harmony, who I have actually managed to make friends with. And that's pretty much how you should consider how well are you doing. Like, look at your technology level, look at your economic strength, and if you're on par or similar to your neighbor, and you have similar fleet sizes, all that sort of stuff, you're doing okay. You're often going to come up against the question of like, should I build more generator supports or should I build more generator districts? I think generally speaking, a safe rule of thumb is for every 5 of the district type, 1 city district that is supporting it is fine. But generally, I think the simplest way to do things is to just get as many of the district that you're trying to optimize, in this case, generator districts, then double specialize towards generator support and optimize for that, and you'll be fine. So here's actually an amazing person that we should make friends with. This is the Synthoan Corporate Alliance, and the reason that we want to make friends with them is because they are a militaristic, spiritualistic mega corporation. So if we make friends with them, they will build branch offices on our planets, increasing the value of our planets. So we're going to assign a person to improve relations with them. And so once you get to this point of view, really acquiring new planets isn't about individually optimizing. Once you're at this point, you just look and you're like, okay, what does my empire need more of? Right, we need more minerals, mining planet. We need more science planet, boom. And you're going to want to focus pretty hard when you're developing your economy. If you don't have to deal with warfare, focus on getting these upgrades to buildings, right? The alloy megaforge, the alloy reclamation plants. All these things are going to make your specialized planets more efficient. The Ithil Harmony demands my subjugation and I refuse. They have overwhelming fleet power, so probably a good time for me to design a real combat station. One of the things that you can do with large with stations is because they have the station combat computer with the ship fire rate and the tracking, you can use larger weapons as they will be more efficient against a regular amount of evasion than you would normally encounter. So this is what I would consider to be like a pretty okay defensive station. Doing less damage to shields isn't a big deal because shields typically have less health than an equivalent tier armor. So I don't mind using blue lasers. Personal preference. You're going to figure out what feels right for you and then spamming these around your frontier stations. So the war, if these guys decide to go to war with me, which they may because they just tried to subjugate me, this place right here is going to be the most important part of the war. So we're going to build a super fortress there. But when it comes to warfare, you're probably going to want to choose one of these 2 traditions. I was waiting to unlock psionics and I was just ascending my planets, but you're probably either going to want to go supremacy, which is all about having a stronger fleet. You can see here you get 20% army damage, 20 naval capacity, you get 25% ship build speed, ship upkeep reductions, extra naval capacity on top of that. You get fleet commander limits, ship fire rate, damage against star bases. You get the war doctrine. I'm going to go with the... I generally think that supremacy is the better one, particularly because of the naval capacity upgrades. However, I think unyielding is kind of neat. I think it's fun. It's fun to take unyielding. But I'm going to go supremacy this game because I think it is just better. And we do need the naval capacity. We're taking a upkeep penalty due to our lack of naval capacity. And our alloys output has not yet kicked in over here in Taiyangshu Prime because we're still in the process of like building this towards being a really, really good planet. In fact, I'm going to start resettling humans over here from the capital to fill those jobs. Now, since Taramba, which is this system right here, the starbase in this system is going to be host to a large fleet garrisoned in here. What you want to take is the crew quarters upgrade, because that's going to give you the docked ship upkeep 25%, which saves you a lot of money. If you care about the station actually participating in the battle, then upgrading gun batteries is a perfectly reasonable decision to make. I don't think it actually makes the station that much stronger, but it's fine. I think you're better off just upgrading it and having a really big fleet sitting around it and a few defense stations. The defense stations help. So now we're going to do the mind over matter agenda here. This is going to give us access to psionic theory. We can begin getting control of that. I'm making sure I've ran mastery of nature on all of my worlds, as it will increase the size and quality of my planets. And that is one of my goals. It's a way to use influence to make my empire even stronger. So there's alloy mega forges and the alloy reclamation plant. We'll be able to create a lot more alloys now. It would be great to unlock either the cruiser or the star fortress, especially because the potential for war is knocking on our door. Deep core mining would be great too, to be able to get more mining output, but I think getting the star fortress would help me defend myself quite effectively. We could really crank out the amount of science we're getting from our capital if we were to replace this energy generation specialization with an energy research support. This would increase the amount of physicists that we have on the planet and massively increase their output, which doesn't feel like a terrible thing to do on this planet, since we have a massive excess of energy credits, and this will make these physicists use a lot of energy credits. Although that said, actually, I changed my mind, cancel. This should be done on a different planet, because there are planets with interdimensional portal people, like this one. Aldebaran would be a far better candidate for us to replace the specialization with an energy research support, as this would get us a disgusting amount of space-time anomaly researchers. But we would need more forge worlds and things like that, so we just have to wait till these actually finish, because we don't have the tier 2 resources to support this. More of our planets are finishing for our continental population to settle, which is really great. And so we're now about the phase of the game where we might want to start considering building these hyper relay networks. But part of the problem is we don't actually have the rare crystals printer yet, which is going to limit how efficiently we can do that, because we would have to buy the rare crystals off the market, which is pretty expensive, and we don't want to do that if we don't have to. I'm trying to do the maths here on whether or not it's worth it to build biological research supports or just go for the society research specialization. So there's mind over matter. We will now gain access to psionic theory. I will finish ancient pulse armor first, because I find it to be quite interesting to make use of ancient pulse armor to make really powerful ships. It's kind of an interesting and unique and intriguing idea. There's another plus 10% ship fire rate from supremacy. That's going to make our fleets that little bit more efficient. It should make them pound for pound better than they were. I suggest at least having one shipyard, if not more, in one of your defensive stations, as it will allow you to actually upgrade ships in situ, and you don't have to retreat them to a shipyard while they're defending your border. So as you research better technology, you can keep updating the fleets while they sit on the border defending you. Personal preference, I like to have at least just one shipyard in there, plus some gun batteries. And then another good pickup is the target uplink computer, which will increase the range of any weaponry on the ship, taking them so that they can reach out and touch enemies so they're not getting outranged. Your stations getting outranged is probably the worst thing that can happen to them. Since we have basically infinite exotic gases, we can run all of these exotic gases edicts. The terraforming gases will increase the rate at which we terraform planets. The exotic gases as fuel will increase the speed of our ships. Exotic gases will increase the shield level. We will need to stop selling quite so many exotic gases, I believe. Similarly, we can do the same with the volatile motes policy. If we go to our government, we go to our policy and edicts. We could do volatile land clearance, which will make clearing blockers faster. Volatile ammunition will increase our kinetic damage. Volatile explosives will give us extra explosive weapon damage. Volatile reactive armor will give us better armor, and so we'll need to stop selling quite as many volatile motes, because we do produce a massive surplus on our factory world. Now the Oracle, who is governing on Dabi 4, can pick a new trait, and I do believe that factory focused would be excellent for him. Extra 10% consumer goods from this place would be amazing. He already completely annihilates the amount of resources that they require. All right, let's get this ship here. We're going to build a habitat central complex. I recommend building the habitat around a world that does not have a yield What I mean by that is don't build it around this, for example, because it has a mineral yield. For whatever reason, you won't be able to re-improve it. I don't know why, just kind of weird right now with the current patch. So we got access to the ancient pulse armor. Now, where this ancient pulse armor is actually incredibly useful is in really large ships and in defense stations, because the medium size of this module is like twice as many stats, but only for 2 extra ancient, what do you call them? Minor artifacts. And then the large one is even more double for another only 2 more. So it costs you 50% more of these ancient artifacts for like 5 times more stats. So the bigger the ship that you could put this on, the better. You want to put this on big ships. I absolutely would not put these on anything smaller than a cruiser. And what's really great about these sort of ancient modules is how great they are for defense stations. Now, we are going to need reactor boosters, and if we put this ancient armor pulsar in here, we're going to go from getting 325 armor per slot to getting 425 armor per slot, plus an additional 190 shield hit points. Now, they're fairly expensive in terms of power, but also in terms of upkeep. You can see with just the armor on here, it's 0.5 upkeep. Right now, if we were to use deflectors, it's 0.3 upkeep. The ancient pulse armor is going to cost us 0.6 upkeep. That's a huge amount of upkeep for this ship. So just keep that in mind. Very dangerous. Very hard to kill. The longer that something survives, the more damage it does. It's a pretty straightforward calculation you should be doing in your mind. We need to get psionic theory. That's going to set us up for a key transition of our empire into the late game. Getting your ascension is your ticket to the late game. And the late game, in my opinion, begins around the year 2300. And since we're researching the society tech, I'm going to hold onto my unity and not take any more supremacy traditions because I want to save my unity. Kiram Prime is another one of these tomb worlds. The spiritualist pops don't like living on tomb worlds, but we should be pretty comfortably able to turn this into a very effective mining planet. And the lovely thing is we can queue up a whole bunch of districts all at once just because we have a bunch of minerals in stock. We are definitely going to need another factory world. I think that's something we're struggling against a little bit. And whenever our stockpile of resources fills, we just sell them off. And Aldebaran Secundus over here could be a really good backup factory world. So I'm going to go ahead and designate it as such. It's going to be a factory world. We will begin the process of specializing it towards factories. It doesn't have that much of the way of rural districts anyway, so I don't think that's necessary. We'll grab ourselves some luxury residences so the planet outputs an insane amount of resources. Now, the Red Thori Punishers, these guys are bad dudes, so I'm going to assign an envoy to an espionage with them. I'm going to begin upgrading a starport here. I'm also going to use the construction ship here to begin building a habitat central complex, which will serve as a fortress world. So I have 2 neighbors in this game. One of my neighbors is at the very least friendly. It's a hive mind, which isn't ideal. My other neighbor is this fanatical purifying endgame crisis faction that's going to be a massive problem. So we need to infiltrate them, and we need to start preparing to defend ourselves against them. And in fact, we may need to declare them to be a crisis for us to deal with them. Now, we have a defensive pact with the Athil Harmony, which is going to help us a lot. I do need to improve relations with them. So Pakshalika Secundus is cranking out a delicious 400 unity per month. We need that to go even higher. And I think the simplest way for us to do that is to replace these luxury residences with temples, and then to add 2 more city districts. This will add about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This will add about 1,000 more priest jobs here, which will get the upkeep and output bonuses. And we can start relocating population here so that we can finish our psionic path really quickly. So I'm just going to start mass moving population that's just sitting around, humans that is, and also the Minarians. Actually, they can move there too. Perfect. There's psionic theory. That's going to lower the empire size from pops by 10%. Empire size from pops is one of the larger contributors to our empire size at the current time, so getting that reduced is really great. Forming a federation could be a useful ability. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be something that we need to do. Clone vats could also be awesome. It would allow us to assemble an extra 1.5 population per month, which is per planet, 12 months times 1.5 plus growth modifiers. We're talking 80 pops per year or something, or no, an extra 20 per year, roughly speaking. This would get an extra 20 pops per year, which is 20% of 100, which is pretty damn good. It might be better if we can form a federation, at least if we have the option to do so, even if we don't take it. And now we can take the Psionic tradition selection. This is going to unlock our primary species to gain the latent psionic effect. It's going to begin the psionic ascension, and once you ascend, you're very much so in the late game, as far as I'm concerned. People are going to disagree with me. This is my own vibes, right? I don't really interact with other people who play Stellaris, right? So this is the way that I play the game, just to be clear. So now if I go into Earth and I click on my human workers, you can see they have the latent psionic ability. So they have a 10% job efficiency boost for researchers, 5% for bureaucrats, that includes priests, and a 5% for enforcers. So initially this is mostly just a research boost, which is very useful. However, as you progress down the psionic tree, you can see here, we'll get the Psi Corps building. We'll gain the base intel level of +10, meaning we'll be able to get more intel against other empires. We will be able to awaken the psionic potential in other species. We will also be able to psionically assimilate other species, and our latent psionics will unlock their full potential. We'll be able to begin breaching the shroud, and yeah, there's some really cool stuff down here. So I'm going to get started with the Psi Corps because I just want to talk about it. It's a pretty cool building. So the Psi Corps is a alternative version of the Precinct House that reduces crime. It also provides you with stability. So here, I tell you what, I'll build one here so we can kind of take a look at it. I'll kind of walk you through the jobs real quick. We have access to star fortresses now. This is the penultimate version of your star bases. This is a very important technology that we've been missing for quite a while, the ability to specialize our mineral areas. Betharian power is quite interesting. We actually do have a Betharian field. This is a special ability that allows you to specialize your mining district to also produce energy at the same time, at the cost of some of the mineral output of your miners. However, if you build the actual Betharian power plant and the Betharian processing, you'll end up with a planet that produces a very interesting amount of value. But I do think that the mineral purification is a little bit more important here, so we'll go for that. Here's another really important building that we're unlocking. The Hollow Temple. It's going to take crystal upkeep, but it will make our priests take less upkeep. Remember, upkeep reductions are massive because the more you can reduce upkeep, the more of a job you can have. It's insane how good that is. So yeah, we'll grab those Hollow Temples. It's going to allow us to crank a ridiculous amount of unity. So if we come down in here and we look at these telepaths, you can see that these telepaths are producing, at a cost of energy, they're producing 100 unity. They're reducing crime by 130. They're providing 10 planetary defense armies and 5 stability. They are ridiculously powerful, to the point where I could probably now, basically what these do is I could probably now cut the amount of these that I require. But effectively what they do is they turn your enforcers into actual, like, insane resource engines for your planets. Because if I look over at this planet, right, we've got an enforcer here. He's reducing crime by 50. He's not really producing any unity. He's not doing anything. And then you compare that to this ridiculous telepath. Now the enforcer generates an insane amount of unity. So like, you want one of these on every planet. And in addition, as you approach into the late game, it can be worth it to replace these luxury residences. As long as you have the consumer goods to support this, it could be actually quite good to replace them with temples, because that will get you more unity, but more importantly, it'll also get you spiritualist ethics attraction. Spiritualist ethics attraction is quite important because it means that a larger percentage of your population will agree with the spiritualist faction, which is a faction that I am trying to promote, but for some reason the xenotolerance faction has like taken over. So many xenophiles in my empire, which is crazy. Because I'm promoting this. I think I'm going to suppress the xenophiles because we just have way too many of them. We built our habitat. Now, our people are not going to have particularly good habitability on habitats. That's not the point. The point is that these are fortresses. It's going to be relatively expensive to maintain these fortresses, but it's still worth it. Eventually, we might want to be able to genetically modify our population to live on these fortresses a little bit better. Perfect. We can take ourselves another tradition. I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to grab that base intel level +10. That's going to make spying on people a little bit easier. But I think at this stage of the game, almost 100 years have passed. So we're very, very much so out of the mid game. And we're going to be moving on into the late game. Now, I don't pretend to be a particularly good player of Stellaris, but I think you can give me a little bit of credit in that I've managed to keep a pretty competitive empire with a lot of the other civilizations in the galaxy. There's going to be better players out there who can teach you how to play better, but that's going to be the second episode of this. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!